Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. It is a great day to be great. It's a great day to debut, a new version of the show, everybody. Again, same old cast of characters, same old fantasy football talk, same old people talking ball. But again, just wanted to try to get live in your guys' life every single Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, also Friday at noon ET with the whole Fantasy Life cast and crew. Again, helping be your one-stop shop for all things fantasy football glory. So hope you guys have been enjoying the team previews that Dwayne and myself have been putting out recently. But right now, we got Dwayne resting on a beach, drafting best ball teams, living his best life. And accordingly, I am joined by fellow Fantasy Life rock star, Kendall Valenzuela. K-Dog's in the house. What's up, Kendall?
What's up? What's up, Ian? You got your face on the show. Dwayne is, like you said, on the beach somewhere. We're kind of like doing that, but it's fantasy football season, draft season. Excited to be here with you.
You know, I've always said Ohio is like the San Diego of the Midwest. So maybe we don't have the beaches here in Columbus, but you know what? We will take it. So again, Kendall and I have a lot to talk about today. Going to go through some of our favorite ways to determine your fantasy football draft order and a bunch of news from the past couple of weeks that, again, probably has some fantasy football ramifications. And also, everyone, one of our big new goals of this, again, newly revamped Fantasy Life show is to actually just, help you guys out more. That's right. You listen to us right now. If you're on YouTube, you can go ahead and put any keeper questions that you've been losing sleep over, because of course that's a normal thing that happens to all of us out here, and we will try to get to it by the end of the show. So again, community is everything, and we're trying to again get back to you guys every now and then at the end of this show. So with that, guys, let's get into it. It's time for the DraftKings opening lines. We're talking the best ways to determine your fantasy draft order. All right, K-Dog, I had an article go up on fantasylife.com. You guys can read if you're into that kind of thing. But basically, just wanted to try to give you guys 5 ways to help determine your fantasy draft order. Because let's face it, we have our draft season. That's great. And then if you, unfortunately, lose, best case, you get to watch one of your frenemies actually lose. Mm-hmm. You have the punishment. But in between that, we have the fantasy football draft order. So again, Kendall and I are going to be giving you 5 different ways to determine that. I'm going to kick things off, Kendall, because I have about 2 more hours of shelf life with my first one. And that is the home run derby. Hand up, my home league, It's an 8-man league. A little bit embarrassing, okay? I get it. We don't have that many people, but conveniently, home run derbies also have 8 people, Kendall. So we go through, we determine, I think we just did a random number generator. You get to pick who you have. I have something named Junior Caminero, but yeah, we get to watch a bunch of home runs. I'm a fan.
I like this. First of all, I've got my Seattle Mariners jersey on right now, and it is for Big Dumper. I'm not going to turn all the way around, but Cal Raleigh tonight. Whoever has Cal Raleigh in your league is probably going to win it. So I'm just letting you know that right now. Sorry. It's okay.
I will say a couple of years ago, I had Albert Pujols in that one year where he was retiring. Oh, nice. I had no business being in there, and I threw a fit in the group me. I was so pissed I had this dude because it was the old Pujols, but what does he go out there and do? Beat Kyle Schwarber in round 1 and got me the 5th pick or something like that. So
I love
thank you, Albert.
I think that's fun.
Kendall, what's one of your favorite ways to determine a draft?
So, one of the easy ones that I personally like and just always see people doing is the cameos. You get the celebrities, you get whoever you want on Cameo. So you can go on there right now. And my favorite thing to do is look at how much people are costing. So you get Scott Hansen. Scott Hansen, by the way, expensive. Shout out to you, Scott, because get your bag, but $266. So all together and do that, but there are cheaper options. You can get Gruden on there for this is much cheaper, but $150. You can get Gene Steratore for $70. That one seems a lot more price appropriate. Shout out to Gene again. Get your money, get your bag. But you can find all these funny people on there to just LeVar Ball. Let's do it. Let's get them to do your draft order randomly, and then you have a memory for the rest of your life. I think that is so fun. Come on.
I kid you not, Kendall. I was in the Kings Classic draft that we have at the Expo in Canton every year, and someone did a LeVar Ball for that.
No
and
way.
He gets to my name, and he goes, LeVar Ball goes, Ian Hartitz? Okay, and then just moved on. Had no idea how to pronounce my last name. Was probably afraid he was going to get canceled. So LeVar Ball, though, one time in his life has tried to say my name. He's got I got that going for me. So
see, that's
good stuff there with. Right, exactly. You get LeVar Ball. Shooter McGavin's $350, a little bit pricey, but that'd be a fun one. It's a memory.
Dang. That's expensive. Tyreek Hill is $800 for Tyreek Hill.
I'll do it for $10. Anyone out there wants your boy. But hey, Not Shooter McGavin, maybe one day. My next one, though, is going to be actually letting golf decide things. So we still have a handful of pretty big tournaments. Look, I love playing golf. I'm very bad. Don't get it twisted. But watching the tournaments on the weekends also can be fun. I think this is a great one if you actually can't get the whole crew together for a draft weekend. Unfortunate, but, people are having babies and families and selfish, life things like that. Can't always get the whole squad together in the middle of July or August. But in this case, Kendall, again, if you want to do it for the British Open this weekend, basically let everyone pick a golfer. If you have a 12-team league, you can pick kind of the top 12 people in the field, and then just go ahead and let the golfers decide it. Nice long sweat. We're talking about 4 entire days here, and again, just a lot of opportunities to talk smack in the group meet. And at the end of the day, that's what fantasy football is all about.
Exactly. No, I like that one a lot, especially if, like you said, people have priorities, children and stuff, all that other stuff, not dogs, not cats like me. So I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Shout out to my dogs for staying quiet, at least for the first 10 minutes of this show. We'll knock on wood very softly, I might add, as that goes on. Kendall, what's your next favorite way to determine a fantasy football draft order?
All right, I'm doing this one this year. So I haven't done it yet, but hand up, I saw this one in, all of the tweets that people have done, but we're doing the pizza delivery, where you order. So you go out and you order based on proximity. Of course, I've got a ton of pizza spots near me. So you order these pizzas at the same time. And then whoever's delivering your pizza, hopefully they're okay with just being like yelling the name of whoever ordered this out loud. But we're just going to say, whose pizza is this? You can't check your phones. It's going to be totally random. You don't know when they're going to show up. So you order pizzas, and then Ian, you've got 12 pizzas for the night, which is, 10 out of 10. And then also it's a fun way because you don't know who's going to come over. So you order pizzas, whoever gets there first is going to be able to be the number one spot. I'm excited about that one.
Can you imagine your pizza delivery driver, just finishing up a long shift, and they give you your 12th pizza, and you're like, seriously, man, this is all you got for me? I think you'd have to just order a small cheese, right? Just try to make the smallest one possible.
It has to be, you have to be all the same, right? I'm not going to get the Supreme or whatever, even though that's better, but you have to all have the same order or something. But yeah, can you imagine this, whoever's delivering your pizza is having a long day, it's draft season and you've got 12 people standing outside waiting for you. How annoying is that going to be? I apologize in advance. Tip your delivery drivers and it'll be okay.
I was about to say, always tip your drivers, but especially if they get you that one-on-one pick, definitely tip them in that case. Last one, guys, I'm actually going to go with the Wonderlic. You can go find equivalents online. They actually did this back in the league, great fantasy football show on FX back in the day. Very aggressive. I've learned from rewatching some of it maybe in the year 2025, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it takes only about 10 minutes, and at the end of the day, you get to make fun of your league mates for not being as smart as you, but you actually have a quantifiable test instead of the random lovely game that we know as fantasy football. So again, those are just 5 ways of helping determine your fantasy league order. I love the pizza race, Kendall. Again, you can also go ahead and get LeVar Ball to do it for you guys. Home Run Derby, golf, and the Wonderlic as well. So that's going to wrap up again just our, DraftKings opening lines. Let's get into the heat of the show now, right after a quick word from our friends over at DraftKings. UFC 318 is coming in hot and the excitement is building with the fight world's biggest names set to clash in the octagon. Every strike, takedown, and upset could be unforgettable. Get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers who bet just $5 get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. All right, K-Dog, time for our first quarter of news catch-up. And unfortunately, don't exactly, not starting off with the best news in the world. In fact, it's quite bad. We had some trouble in RB paradise. Starting things off with Quinshon Judkins was arrested over the weekend for some, domestic violence-related battery. We did not have all the specifics. And if I've learned anything from trying to, figure out what's going on in, a legal case like this, especially as it pertains to fantasy football, I would just say be patient and let's let some of the facts present themselves. That said, what we know right now is that, again, he was actually, arrested and posted on bail. Also a situation where some of the details have started to come out, at least in the arrest document, alleging that Judkins did indeed strike his female friend. So, yeah, this is really bad, Kendall. And I hate immediately being like, oh, my gosh, now what's this mean about fantasy football? It is a case, though, where, again, not saying he's going to be suspended immediately. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But the one thing we really do have to remember is that commissioner's exempt list and how easy it can be for the commissioner to basically take these guys out of action if they choose.
Yeah, it's not great. And it's just one of those things where unfortunately this happens and then we have to talk about fantasy, which just in general feels wrong. But it is, it is the spot where if you've been drafting Quinshon Judkins, you have to look around and say, okay, what could this mean for the Cleveland Browns? And what could this mean overall for that landscape? Which again, the Cleveland, I can't even go there again. But let's just start with this. Like Quinshon Judkins right now, right? He's going off the board on Underdog. He was going off the board at RB 27. So I think the bigger question for me, I don't have much Quinshon Judkins. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Like he wasn't someone that I was going out of my way to draft in that range where I was more, inclined to get a Travion Henderson, and he's way higher than him right now. Same with, I'd like DeAndre Swift a little bit more, even a Tony Pollard if I wanted to wait. So I wasn't necessarily in love with this backfield already. So it kind of makes you question, we have to wait now. This is a wait and see game. You've got a lot of the most of the second round picks right now kind of looking like they're going to hold out of training camps anyway. So you just kind of add that on top of them maybe holding out for however long that's going to be. So right now, for me, it's a wait and see situation. At first glance, Ian, it doesn't look good. I'm just saying I'm not drafting. I'm not going out of my way now to make sure that I'm going to stop drafting him. If you were drafting him, I think I would stop. Jerome Ford wasn't someone that I was also necessarily in love with, because I look at this backfield and I say, all right, maybe Jerome Ford could step up, and I wrote him as a sleeper, but then they went out and drafted 2 rookie running backs. So to me, when I looked at that, I said, okay, well, what is that? Is the writing on the wall there? So out of all of them, I haven't been going out of my way to draft any of them besides Samson, really.
Dylan Sampson, someone who was ranked, a bit higher by certain media outlets and obviously draft analysts. I know Dane Brugler over at The Athletic actually had him as RB6 in his, Awesome the Beast. You guys should always check that out every single draft season. Thor Nystrom, Dwayne McFarland, our resident, draft experts here at Fantasy Life, a little bit lower on the guy you can see on your graphic right now, just the RB9 and Dwayne's supermodel rating. But again, if Judkins is going to be potentially removed from the equation, we'll see what happens there. Sampson and Ford would be the 2 guys to obviously take over the bulk of those opportunities. Also do have Pierre Strong Jr. there. So Kendall, I do think it's important to remember. And I guess the reason why I wasn't, drafting a ton of Judkins, first of all, I don't think anyone is exactly excited about the possibility of the 2025 Cleveland Browns, putting fireworks up there on the scoreboard. More on fireworks here in just a few minutes. I did not mean to do that, but what a potential transition that could be, K-Dog. And then also just the reality, though, that Kevin Stefanski, it's not like he's made a habit of just featuring one running back as his 3-down workhorse over the years, all right? Now, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, those were one of the better duos, in the NFL. So I could hear the argument that, maybe Quinshon Judkins would assume a bigger workload than what we saw during those years. But man, if we are going to lose Judkins, Ford, Sampson, Strong, maybe the answer to that, Kendall, is just no.
No, exactly. That's why I'm saying, there are guys in this range where, again, he was going in this range on Underdog where I wasn't necessarily, again, going out of my way, because you've got RB 27, but you still have running backs there like Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones is going after him. We can tell ourselves a story with Brian Robinson Jr., or you can just snag a running back in that range just a little bit earlier with DeAndre Swift, who really doesn't seem to have a ton of competition. If you like Caleb Johnson, I know that you're more of a Jaylen Warren guy, but David Montgomery, there are guys where you could just go a little bit earlier, or you could pivot to the wide receivers. Even in that range, Ricky Pearsall, Matthew Golden, there were solid receivers that you could go with anyways, that they all at that point in the draft, some of them have red flags, but you can squint and tell yourself okay, I'd rather go this direction on a better offense than going with a guy like Quinshon Judkins, rookie going into a bad situation with a really bad Browns team. That's how I went about it.
I think Kendall said it best originally. It's a wait and see situation for us here. Something that was actually echoed by legal expert and friend of the show, Drew Davenport. Make sure you guys can continue to follow him over on the old Twitter sphere for all the updates, regarding this sort of legal stuff. Now on a wouldn't say brighter note, Kendall, but a different note. We do have Najee Harris accidentally got in a firework accident and injured his eye over 4th of July weekend. Now, this one's interesting because for maybe the first time in the history of human civilization, Kendall, the internet got something right. This, rumor was everywhere on the old Twitter sphere. Seemed like it might be BS. We just had a bunch of, grok-generated eye patch images going on. But then it came out and this actually happened. So all we know right now is that we got a quote from Najee's agent, for what it's worth, saying that Najee sustained a superficial eye injury during the incident, but is fully expecting to be ready for the upcoming NFL season. I am curious that this got made on July 10th when the injury happened on July 4th. And we also apparently heard that he had to go to a separate hospital in California to get additional testing. Makes sense. You're an NFL player. You should absolutely get additional testing and everything. But I don't know, Kendall, like there's a difference between team sources, Najee Harris himself coming out and saying everything's fine, and someone's agent saying in July, like, oh yeah, he's going to be fine by week 1. I don't love this, okay? Especially when we're in a backfield, just competition right now with Omarion Hampton. At a minimum, it feels like Najee is dealing with something that could keep him out of practice for a little bit. Just again, not freaking out, not drafting Najee, not dropping him to RB50 or anything like that. But for right now, I mean, I certainly would give Omarion Hampton a little bit of an upgrade.
I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like a little bit. I'm freaking out. Not like you said, not all the way. But first of all, what are we doing, Ian? Like come on. What are we doing here? Can we please make? I think the whole show should be named "Better Decision Making." Like I don't know. Maybe I thought we learned our lesson here with the fireworks, but I guess not. I've just never seen the appeal of like going out there and trying to hold a firework, whatever it was. But anyway, I'm with you though. Like they did not say there was no mention to me when I was looking at this of training camp. Like when the reports came out, it was that he should be good to go for the 2025 season. So I'm curious when he's going to get back out there, because Najee Harris, when you look at the backfield as a whole, to me, I was like, okay, he's already going to fight a little bit of an uphill battle. I was drafting Najee Harris with the idea that he has been so durable. Every season he has, it's 1,000 yards. He's never missed a game in his career. So I was coming in with the idea this season that Najee Harris was going to hold the RB1 role until Omarion Hampton eventually took over. Because we see these rookies, midway through the season, back half of the season, Omarion Hampton is younger. He's going to have a bit more juice to him. So I always figured that Najee Harris was going to give away touches to Omarion Hampton eventually. This might just, roll Omarion Hampton into that RB1 level a little bit faster to me. Now, we can hope that we get reports that the eye injury is fine, that everything's good, but I want to see it, Ian. Like, I want to see him out there and working and be like, okay, he's out there and this is good news. Because if we're taking it at face value, I think it's a little bit more risky right now. If you're taking Najee Harris, he's only going he's RB38 though, so it was kind of baked into the price already. Adam Ronis on our SiriusXM show a week ago told me that he's a boring pick anyway. He's going in a boring range, but I don't know. To me, I am pumping the brakes a little bit because I have been taking a good amount of Najee Harris, and now it's kind of like, I don't know if I want to go there.
It is one of those things where I don't think you're exactly going to be excited to start Najee Harris and, even week 1, week 3, week 4, whatever. But he's right next to Ramondre Stevenson in the situation where I could see them getting 12 to 15 combined carries and targets. We're not going to be thrilled about that because we want the rookies to get force-fed the football. But Kendall, unfortunately, injuries on the football field do happen as well. And if something did happen to Hampton or Travion Henderson, we do know Najee and Ramondre Stevenson have that, 3-down skill set to potentially give us some, again, maybe not the most efficient football in the world, but at least good enough to, again, get back into that upside RB2 territory. So right now, again, feeling better about Hampton, not as good about Najee. We'll see how the situation continues to play out. But guys, that's going to wrap up quarter 1. Now let's get into quarter 2, talking about the new Dolphins tight end, Darren Waller in the year 2025. Let's get it. Yeah, crazy, Kendall. This one took me off guard. I mean, all right, Darren Waller. I thought he was just, hey, rap career seemed to be going great and everything, but no, he apparently is back in Miami. Gave an interview like a couple months before this where it did not sound like football was on his mind, and even mentioned that when he was playing for the Giants, he basically realized mid-game against the Bills that he was going to retire after they were making him lead blocks. So not exactly sure why that's the sort of guy you want to, get into your football program when the Dolphins have kind of gone on record saying like we want to be this more physical team. But hey, for right now, Darren Waller, Dolphins tight end 1. What's like your expectation here, Kendall? I mean, is it going like, hey, Darren Waller's back? Are you even wondering if he's going to be on the team in week 1?
No, Ian, what are we doing here? What year is it? What's happened? Like, this is the guy that said he wanted to take an opportunity to take back the power in his life and make choices for himself. And then he just quit football and was like, I'm good. Like, has he, I don't know. I do like to be optimistic though. And I do want to believe that maybe he's been working out this whole time and maybe things could get better. But I don't know, Ian, to me, when you look at him, I have him ranked tight end 24. And I think that that's pretty much in line with where I'm going to keep him, unless we see, some amazing videos at training camp. I just don't think he's going to get the Jonnu Smith treatment, right? Like Darren Waller was one of the top tight ends in fantasy football, but how many years ago was that, right? That was like 2019, 2020. So it's been a long time since we've gotten that production out of Darren Waller. And I don't know why we would expect, after a year off, doing whatever, the rap career, whatever we were doing, I'm team Kelsey Plum, by the way, if you can't tell, but, whatever we were doing for the last year, I don't know why we think that, he's going to be able to jump into this offense and do anything like top 10 numbers for fantasy football. I just can't get there. Maybe, like I said, I like to be optimistic. So maybe we see some things in training camp. Maybe he really does just look phenomenal, but he hasn't given us that production in a really long time. So I'm really having a hard time wrapping my mind around the idea that he could do it now.
And just anticipating him trying to take that Jonnu Smith role, I couldn't really think of two tight ends, honestly, almost more different in the way they're going to be utilized. Darren Waller's, been someone that's had some incredible years in fantasy, but he's usually someone where you actually can stretch the seam, and he is someone that can maybe win man-on-man coverage and just get more downfield. Jonnu Smith, not that he can't do that, but he is, again, more of a yak beast, someone that you're going to dump the ball down to and go and let him just use that God-given ability to break tackles and pick up a bunch of yards after the catch. So, again, maybe that is a sign that Mike McDaniel and company do want to bring in a different dimension to the offense. I will say, Kendall, if we're trying to build a bull case here, you look at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and yes, they're obviously projecting to lead the way here in targets, but there really isn't a number 3 wide receiver to speak of. I mean, Malik Washington, our one true touchdown king, Nick Westbrook-Akini, shout out, I'm not trying to take away from him. But if there was an offense where you could talk yourself into Waller being this, big slot de facto receiver, this one kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, that's why I say I can be somewhat optimistic, and I can admit when I'm wrong. Like in a couple weeks, if we're looking at him and I'm like, okay, you know what, they're talking him up. We've got Coach Speak Index telling us that this all is going to be right for Darren Waller, not Jonnu Smith, and he's going to be in there and actually take over that role. Like, okay, I can change my mind. But like I said, for right now, I just don't know the production. I want to make sure that he was working out this whole time and that he's really ready to go. I was so disappointed that Jonnu Smith left this team, because that was really one of those guys that all of us consensus-wise had in the top 10 of our tight ends, and now he's outside. It wasn't a good move for anyone for fantasy football purposes, in my opinion. So Darren Waller, you can prove me wrong, try tight end 24, like I said, but I'm just not optimistic yet, Ian.
I will say also, just from a real life perspective, not the sort of move that makes me think the Dolphins are all of a sudden going to bounce back after that, disappointing season last year. Exactly. I mean, they wanted this new identity, kind of this finesse team. You're not getting the job done in January when it counts. Darren Waller, that's your answer at the end of the day. I mean, how has whoever proposed this not laughed out of the room? We'll see. Mike McDaniel's going to forget more about football than I will ever know. So I'm with Kendall. Not exactly going to be, fully laying out the judgment here just yet. But man, even in drafts right now, okay, if I'm going with the Dolphins and I'm trying to stack things up, I guess I'm not going to hit on any pick that's going to be outside like the top 200 overall players. But man, even at that point in drafts, give me Juwan Johnson, give me Mason Taylor, give me guys that have spent this entire calendar year planning on playing professional football. But Kendall, with all that said, let's get groovy with it. That's right. Let's pick some songs here that actually encapsulate what we're expecting from Darren Waller in Miami. I came up with this segment, and accordingly, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and make you go first. So Kendall, give me a song.
I love this, by the way. This is such a good idea because, Darren Waller, rap career, if you haven't heard it or seen the music video, I think the music video is something else, Ian. So you guys have to go and check it out. It's amazing. So my first thought was I Forgot That You Existed by Taylor Swift. That was my first thought with Darren Waller. I forgot Darren Waller was a thing. I didn't even know he was an option, Ian. So you're telling me that Darren Waller was an option in 2020, in the year 2025, after taking time off to focus on himself and his music career, which, shout out to you, do whatever you want to do that makes you happy. But genuinely, Ian, it's the Taylor Swift song, I Forgot That You Existed. And then it goes on to say, and I'm okay with that. And I am okay that I forgot that he existed, to be honest.
And the fact that it was a trade too, like I would have been less surprised if it was like, oh, he's coming out of retirement. I was like, oh, he's still on the Giants. They had to actually do a trade for this. Absolute madness. So that was a good one. I'm going to go a little bit older school here. Give me some David Bowie, golden years. And as they say in this song, Kendall, run for the shadows. And I do think that might have actually been a better idea for Darren as opposed to that Miami sunshine. So he is going to be 33 in tight end actually does age better than other positions in fantasy football. Yeah. But even then, guys, there have only been 10 tight ends that actually posted top 12 numbers in the last decade at age 33 or older. So, hey, we actually did see 3 of them last year. Taysom Hill before he got hurt, Travis Kelce, and Zach Ertz. I'd be very surprised, though, if Waller becomes number 11 here by the time everything is said and done. So, good shout with T Swift. Kendall, do you have another song, or are you just going to kind of roll with that one?
You know what? I did. One of them was I have a list, Ian. You tell me the segments. I'm going to come with some songs. So one was Don't Kill My Vibe by Kendrick Lamar, because I'm just like, in your drafts, you should be thinking about that the whole time. Do not let Darren Waller kill your vibe. Do not be looking at him like you look at Kyle Pitts every year and say to yourself, you know what? This could actually work. Like, if you give me a choice, I'd take Kyle Pitts over Darren Waller this season. And that's saying a lot, Ian. We do not like him that much. But that was one of them. And then the other one was Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson, because it's like, since you've been gone, I can breathe, for the first time. Yeah, I'm moving on. That's maybe where we should go with that too. Those were my other 2.
I've been listening to Spotify playlists recently. It's called Divorce Dad Rock Bangers. And it's just all like 2000s alternative rock. We got a bunch of Creed on there. I'm sure Since You've Been Gone is on there as well. So it's a good, shout out. I am not divorced, just for the record, but hey, nothing wrong with that. And you guys got some bangers on that playlist. I'm going to close things out with Time Is Running Out by Muse. How did it come to this? It is a very good question. So yeah, just again, complete shock here. It was about the last thing I was expecting this entire offseason. Again, we'll give Waller some credit. He was awesome the last time he was actually playing football, more so for the Raiders. 4th most receiving yards, 4th best PFF receiving grade between 2019 and 2023. But again, just really think that time is running out. He's getting old, and since he's been gone, really haven't thought too much about him.
Exactly.
Anymore, so
that was 5 years ago.
Said, yeah. I know, 5 years ago. Let's move on, everyone. Come on, enough of Darren Waller. But hey, guys, with Darren Waller out of the picture, we actually do have Jonnu Smith finding a new home as well. That's right, the BFFs, the boys are back. Arthur Smith and Jonnu reunited at last. So this rumor was kind of going around, Kendall, where it was out there, and then it was like, nah, he's not going anywhere. And then it came back out there, and then look what happened. Jonnu Smith wearing that black and yellow in Pittsburgh. So on the one hand, I mean, no, it's not ideal. We have an offense led by 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. We also have Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington there. We have seen what Arthur Smith does to our fantasy players. On the other hand, Arthur Smith loves him some Jonnu Smith. There's really only DK Metcalf as what I would call high-end target competition in this offense. And we like Jonnu Smith. He just posted a top 5 season. We know he's good at football. Where do you kind of fall on this, Kendall? Because at a minimum, I certainly feel better about Jonnu versus Waller going to Miami.
Oh, yeah. Everyone now watching this right now live knows how I feel about Darren Waller. And I promise I try not to be a hater too much, but I can't get behind it. But, I was so disappointed with this news. Like, I just expected it was a no-brainer for the Miami Dolphins to turn around and say, hey, yeah, you were a featured part of our offense. We are absolutely going to keep you around because of the production that you gave us, because of the connection that you had with our quarterbacks during the time when Tua Tagovailoa was down, when he was back. Like, I was just surprised by this and disappointed in a way, because you're going from a good offense in Miami to like a not great fantasy offense for the Steelers. So I'm going to hold out hope that he's going better than Darren Waller. Like, when I look at this, he wasn't a total wash when he was running with Arthur Smith in that scheme. But like, again, it wasn't phenomenal. I took him outside of my top 10. I believe I have him right now at tight end 15 or 16, only 2, Ian, because I'm not someone that's going to turn around and say, yeah, Aaron Rodgers at 41 is going to be able to support a ton of high-end fantasy football weapons. Like, I do think that he's like, DK Metcalf will get fed. And I absolutely think that Jonnu Smith is going to get some targets and get the football. But at the same time, like, I have to draw a line. And if I'm believing that DK Metcalf's going to be okay in this offense, I'm just like, I don't know if I can spread the wealth that much. So I still do like Jonnu Smith. If you're waiting on a tight end, I mean, there are worse ways that you can go about drafting someone. But again, I'm just disappointed that you're not going to get the same, kind of targets. You're not going to get the same kind of offensive productivity that you had with the Dolphins last season. It was just disappointing.
Speaking of drawing lines, Kendall, let's do our best Bob Ross impressions here and actually try to paint the picture, good and bad, for Jonnu Smith and then the Steelers offense. All right, this is a kind of a new segment I want to try to do this offseason where, again, we force ourselves to look at how it could go good and how it can go bad because, let's face it, Kendall, a few times over the years, we've been wrong about fantasy football, okay? Very, very rarely, of course, but nah, you guys know I'm just playing around. But seriously, again, because sometimes I get so I think, take locked, if you will, and we don't actually consider what could go through in the full range of outcomes. That's what we're trying to do right now. So with Jonnu, let's paint the good picture, Kendall, okay? Because again, Arthur Smith loves him. Let's say he does finish as a number 2 pass game option. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is feeling a little bit better, second year removed from that Achilles injury. If we do get 90, 95 targets here, I mean, Jonnu can go a long way with it. At a minimum, we like the talent profile here of the guy. And again, there are targets to be had. I guess the big question here is how much Pat Freiermuth is also going to be involved. But that would be, again, I guess just the overall best case outcome for Jonnu. He needs to, 1, overtake Pat Freiermuth, 2, Aaron Rodgers not to be complete dust in the year 2025. And but if those 2 things happen, we're feeling okay.
Yeah, absolutely. This is best case scenario, and I'd sign up for that. That's why I'm saying, tight end 15 isn't like, that's taken a tumble out of our rankings, but like it's not he's not totally dead to us, right? There is a world where we know that this is Aaron Rodgers' last go. Sure, he's 41 years old, but he wants to have, the best retirement party ever, and he's just going to ball out. Like, I don't know, like you're still going to get like catchable passes from him. We saw it last season when he was peppering Devontae Adams with targets. So, and like you said, Ian, there's no wide receiver 2 really on this team. So if you want to look at Jonnu Smith and say to yourself, you know what, I don't necessarily believe in, anyone outside of DK Metcalf. I know there's some Calvin Austin truthers out there because we've been talking about him for a couple of years now. But if you want to tell yourself that, and I could sign up for that, if he does get the targets and if this team is a lot better than maybe we're expecting them to be in 2025, there's a path for him to at least outperform that tight end 15 ADP for sure.
You should be a Calvin Austin truther, Kendall. He's got some Tyler Lockett to his game. I'm telling you guys out there, if you haven't had the chance, go to YouTube, NFL's top 100 plays from this last year. Just a fun watch. Get on that side TV. That's what they're there for. Calvin Austin and Christian Watson. I could not believe how many times they kept popping up on that screen. Maybe Roman Wilson, basically washed rookie year, wasn't injured, was injured the entire time. But I hear you. Based on other teams' rosters, like, no, we're not getting excited about these auxiliary wide receivers. I certainly think it is probably easier to paint the bad case for Jonnu Smith, though, Kendall, because the one funny thing I found while researching this, Jonnu signed a 1-year, $12 million deal with Pittsburgh. That's decent money for tight ends. Last year, though, Pat Freiermuth, his extension was 4 years, $48.4 million. So I think that was intentional to give him just a little bit less per year than actually what we're seeing Pat Freiermuth get. Lest we forget Darnell Washington, who I think at this point should switch positions to offensive tackle, make himself a lot more money. But hey, he wants to play tight end, go for it. I mean, it's a situation where it's still a run-first offense. All right, even if Arthur Smith loves Jonnu, he's not going to be airing the ball out. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be good. And again, a lot of target competition. So while the wide receivers at hand aren't anything for us to really worry about, Kendall, I just have a really tough time thinking that Muth and honestly even Darnell Washington are going away.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I'm trying to be optimistic because we already just totally crapped all over Darren Waller. So I'm like, maybe Jonnu's going to be better. But again, it's just one of those things where I'm just overall probably staying away. This is another offense where just, like we've talked a little bit about, Jaylen Warren and what he could be in DK Metcalf, but it's not one that I'm just overly excited to draft the whole offense.
If we did want to try to paint a good picture, though, for the entire offense, again, we need Aaron Rodgers to be better. Maybe this run game could actually get going. You mentioned Caleb Johnson a bit earlier. He's someone who actually earned an Arian Foster comp from our guy Thor Nystrom in the Thor 500. That would certainly be a heck of a third-round pick if that comes to fruition. The offensive line, they are going to be getting their first-rounder back from 2024, who unfortunately missed most of the year, but didn't have a ton of big additions otherwise. I will say, I don't want to call Aaron Rodgers completely dust yet. Look, when they go into the wild card round, because Mike Tomlin's going to somehow pull another 9-8 season out of his butt. Look, it's going to be bringing a knife to a gunfight when you have to go up against Josh Allen or any of these other just AFC dual threat aliens. But if you do look at Rodgers down the stretch last year, had the 289 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Jaguars, threw 4 touchdowns against Miami at the end of the season. He did start to look a little bit healthier down the stretch, and I just think it's one of these situations where I understand why everyone is very much tired of this guy, and he certainly doesn't exactly know how to lay low in the media and stuff, so feel however you want to feel about him. But just from a pure on-field football standpoint, this dude can still spin it. If there's any truth to the idea that they are going to get better mobility from him an extra year from that Achilles, I don't think it's a stretch, Kendall, to say Rodgers could be their best quarterback since pre-elbow surgery Big Ben.
Yeah, I don't think that's stretching it at all. Like, I think that is totally an opportunity that we have. And like I said, like while we might just not like him overall, like he is still going to get whoever needs the ball. He's going to get DK Metcalf the ball, probably Pat Freiermuth. And like my thing too is that I've been actually drafting more. I'm curious about you, but I've been drafting more Jaylen Warren than Caleb Johnson going into this season. And I don't know. He's someone even before the draft where I wrote it up, believe for our magazine, which is out now, and you guys can all go and check that out. But he was one of those guys where I think, when you look at ADPs and where some of these guys are going, like he's not someone that I think, has the same conversation that we do about Omari and Hampton, right? That he's just going to completely go away, by week 4, we're never going to see him again. Like I do still think that Jaylen Warren is going to be involved in this offense. So yeah, for me, I've taken DK Metcalf, I've taken Jaylen Warren, but that's where I draw the line. If I need a really late, like if it's a late round kind of streamer when we're in season, if it's just a late round target where I want to get that stack and Aaron Rodgers is there, then I say to myself, okay, but I'm making sure I have 2 other very good quarterbacks on my roster just in case things go south.
Yeah, 100%. For anyone's, traditional home leagues out there, you're not touching Aaron, and that is perfectly fine. But I do think we could get 2 viable fantasy guys out of this offense. The first being DK Metcalf. He's always been kind of a boomer bust wide receiver 3. That's basically where he's being priced at, so I don't hate that. And then, of course, Jaylen Warren, who, lest we forget, everyone, put forward some of the best efficiency numbers in the NFL before last season. But also, let's not forget the sort of injuries this dude was playing through. Hamstring, grade 2 in August, and had an ankle injury. Then a knee injury going on in September. Just really never looked like he was the same until we went on in the year. And yes, Caleb Johnson's going to get his, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's just immediately going to be fed like prime Derrick Henry or anything like that. And also, who's going to be the pass down back for your quarterback who doesn't want to move and take any hits? That's right, that will be Mr. Warren. So it's close. I haven't completely faded Caleb Johnson, but again, just when I'm looking at the players, Jaylen Warren has NFL proven explosiveness that I am going to be trusting a little bit more than what Caleb did at Iowa. And also, who do we want in PPR leagues? The pass catcher, also Mr. Warren. So that was paint the picture. Again, trying to be a little bit more positive than most are about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I do think K-Dog and I are generally in agreement that wouldn't exactly think some of those optimistic thoughts are going to come to fruition. Let's talk about another injury here, K-Dog. It is time for Tristan Wirfs, the Buccaneers all-pro stud offensive tackle. Actually just got voted as the #1 offensive tackle in the league by various, anonymous resources at ESPN, league executives, scouts, all that stuff going on there. So I love Tristan Wirfs. You love Tristan Wirfs. We all love Tristan Wirfs. Look, it's no debate, Kendall. The Buccaneers are not as good without this dude, and he is expected to potentially miss the first 4 weeks of the season as he recovers from this knee surgery. And again, he is expected tentatively per Rick Stroud to start the season on the PUP list. So it's not good. That said, Kendall, did you run to your rankings and drop Bucky Irving down 10 spots? Or are you all of a sudden not picking Baker Mayfield or worry about Mike Evans? Because, again, we did see him in one game without Wirfs last year. Baker didn't get sacked. They scored 30 points against the Giants, and Bucky had over 150 yards. So, again, not trying to count out offensive linemen. They're a huge deal in any given football game. But did you really adjust your ranks much on this news, Kendall?
No, I didn't adjust my rankings only because I want to, again, he's starting off on the PUP list. So, minimum 4 games. And that's all we can hope for, Ian, is that it's just 4 games. But I will say, if I'm looking at this news and thinking, okay, how is this going to affect anyone in fantasy football? It does, Baker Mayfield, it makes me a little bit nervous only because of the expected regression that we are already assuming he's going to have in 2025, right? His numbers last season was, he was having fun. He was being Baker Mayfield and he was like balling out at the same time. Like you can look at the touchdowns per pass attempt, the rushing yards per game. You can look at the passing yards per attempt. Like almost all of those are probably going to come back down, right? Dwayne McFarland did a great write-up on that at fantasylife.com. And I highly encourage everyone to go and check it out. And I think, the other, stat that I saw from PFF was that Wirfs allowed 0 sacks, 13 quarterback pressures, fewest of any offensive tackle, minimum 600 snaps in the NFL last season. So I do feel like, like you said, offensive linemen matter. And especially on that left side for Baker Mayfield, I do think, he's going to start to feel a little bit more pressure. But again, I didn't run to the rankings and change it for Baker, but that's the one I'm most worried about when we can already expect incoming regression from him. losing someone like Wirfs out of that offense is never a good thing, right? We're never sitting here and saying anything positive about this. So all we can hope for, though, is that it's just 4 games, right? Because sometimes we get this news and then we say, oh, okay, that's totally, 4 games is fine. Then it comes down to 6, and then you go to 8 and you just say, okay, yikes. It's like the Jonathan Brooks situation last year where they told us, hey, he's going to be good. He's going to start on PUP, but he's going to come back strong. So that's the only thing I worry about. But I think out of everyone, for me, Ian, I look at Baker Mayfield and say, this isn't great for you.
Todd Bowles is quickly becoming, I'd love to see, again, you mentioned Coach Speak Index earlier, shout out, does great stuff and everything, but I'd love to see Todd Bowles' injury, reliance, because he said back in freaking June that Wirfs was going to be ready for training camp. He said down the stretch of last season that Chris Godwin had an outside chance of returning for a deep playoff run. Now he's not even committing to Godwin ahead of week 1. So just again, can never trust exactly what we're hearing out of Tampa Bay. I don't necessarily blame the coaches for not giving out this information. They're not necessarily forced to be overly truthful here, but come on, Todd Bowles, we got fantasy teams to run. All right, man, we would appreciate your help trying to get that done. But I almost had to laugh, Kendall, as again, we kind of get behind the numbers, more into the classroom here on the injury, because there's nothing positive that should come out of this offense without Tristan Wirfs. I do wonder if there's one brave soul in our fantasy industry who's going to be like, more pressure. Baker Mayfield's going to have to scramble more, and then he's going to rack up more rushing yards. So for the record, I will not be that idiotic person to say that, but I'm sure one is out there. I do want to point out, though, because you look at kind of what this offense has done in terms of pressure, and I've seen a lot of people go to the, last season, second lowest pressure rate, actually first lowest pressure rate in the entire league. Now, pressure can be a bit of a quarterback sack as well. They got to get rid of the football with a sense of urgency, but Baker also had the second worst pressure to sack ratio. The thing is, though, this isn't exactly the most stable metric over time. I like it. It helps show guys like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love. They're consistently really good here. Jonnu Smith as well has just been awesome at, again, avoiding sacks when the pressure does get there. Baker, not so good last year. But, guys, we're talking about being the second worst in the league last year. 1 year before, he was 14th best, all right? So year over year, Baker's had some good, some bad. I wouldn't immediately just stick to the 2024 numbers here. And, again, that kind of takes me more to, again, just kind of the impact we've seen across other offensive lines in the league. Shout out to the great Hayden Winks, always, glorifying us with some fantastic information over at Underdog with Josh Norris. But Hayden actually put out what some EPA on-off splits were with some of the best offensive tackles in the league. So we had Trent Williams with the 49ers. They actually increased plus 0.9, which is a lot for an offensive lineman. When he was on the field versus off, we saw the Giants and Andrew Thomas, the Lions with Taylor Decker, Rams with Alaric Jackson have similar, success. So again, left tackle, you can argue protecting that blind side more important than any other piece. I will say, though, even those numbers, we're all talking a small sample. We're talking 1 or 2 games here and there. I know Trent was out a little bit longer, but Trent was also out when Debo was not playing well, when Brandon Ayuk was out of the picture, and all these other stuff was going on. So again, it's one injury. It is an important injury, but again, for right now, everyone, whatever you thought about Baker, Bucky, Mike Evans, these guys before, not saying you can't adjust the ranks a tad. Let's face it, we all love to do it from time to time, but I think moral of the story, Kendall, don't freak out here.
Don't freak out. Wait. Just wait for information. Like, I just, we already have recency bias from last season. That's one of the things that we always like to tell people on SiriusXM is like, wash away anyone that did you wrong. Maybe look back at them again this season. There's always been a time, and I can put my hand up where I've just said, I'm never drafting this guy again. And then it hurts you when he's actually doing well. So recency bias is one thing, but just, not overreacting, not making sure you're going into drafts with all the information that you have. And unfortunately for this one, it's going to be one that happens, closer to the start of the season because he's already on PUP. We already have the 4 games, but that goes for any of these guys. Like, we have to watch out for a lot of them coming into the season. Brandon Ayuk's one of them. You already mentioned that before. Like, we just have to be careful. Coaches will tell us one thing, and then all of a sudden it's CMC not being able to play on that Monday night week 1 game, and then you're kind of having him done for the season. So just be careful.
You mentioned Dwayne's regression article on Baker. I'll admit I haven't gone on my way to really draft too much Baker Mayfield this year, but want to get your thoughts on Bucky Irving because, again, it's one of these phenomenons where Liam Cohen going to Jacksonville is all amazing. We're going to see this offense all of a sudden skyrocket, and then it's like, well, does him leaving Tampa Bay then mean that they're going to be in the dumpster? And it doesn't really seem like the public consensus is exactly assuming that's going to happen. Really can't overstate the impact that he was able to have with some of these numbers we can look at, specifically running rush yards before contact per carry. Again, the offensive line hasn't undergone any, crazy transformations in recent years. Tristan Wirfs has been on this team for half a decade at this point. They were 26th and 27th in this metric in 2022 and 2023, all the way up to 7th last year. So yeah, maybe Bucky Irving's vision had something to do with that. Sean Tucker was doing his thing, was out there. Rashad White exists, but all right, Kendall, with Bucky Irving, because again, I haven't been going out of my way to draft him because of some of the OC potential problems, and just because he's going next to guys like Josh Jacobs, like Jonathan Taylor, like Kyron Williams, and these others who I'm just more convinced are going to see upwards of 300 touches with a little bit of good health. What's been your overall thoughts on Bucky Irving this offseason?
I've been okay taking him, to be totally honest with you. And I'm not, I'm someone that also likes to look at, coaches leaving. And I say to myself, okay, are the Lions going to be as good without Ben Johnson? But, for at least Baker, when we're talking about Baker, he's been through this before. And it feels like, he's been able to withhold, his value as a quarterback through some of those changes. And I want to believe the same thing for Bucky Irving. Now, looking at how many times I've drafted him, we don't need to go that far because it hasn't been that much. Like you said, but I haven't shied away from him. But you're right. You might look at other offenses and say, well, hey, I know that this guy is going to get a huge workload, and that's what I always want. That's what we always want to go and target in fantasy football. So I've been okay. I've been good taking him, but I understand if people want to either go a little bit earlier or say, you know what, I just want to get one of those elite running backs, because he's also sometimes in that range, Ian, where if I want to go hero RB, he's not the guy that I'm going after necessarily. I want to get the big guys up front in the first round. I want to get the Bijan Robinsons. I want to get the Saquons. I want to get the Ashton Genties of the world, and then just go ahead and make sure that I have elite wide receivers for the next 3 or 4 rounds, maybe throw in an elite tight end there. So if I'm going with that build, he's not necessarily someone that I wait for. I'll just say that. But I still like the output that I think he's going to have. Our projections from Dwayne and Matthew Friedman, I think, back that up as well. But yeah, if you're putting him up against guys like Josh Jacobs, I could understand why people say, you know what, I want someone that's going to be fully featured. He was the workhorse RB on this team last season, and go a different way.
It's just these decisions at the top of the drafts that are destined to drive you absolutely crazy throughout the fantasy football season. Because we both have Bucky ranked as a top 12 running back. I think he's great. Why can we not just enjoy that, Kendall? We should just enjoy that. But the problem is we got to pick between him and Josh Jacobs and Trey McBride and fellow awesome football players. But then the second we see Bucky breaking a 45-yard touchdown in week 1, all I'm going to think about is how stupid I was for not drafting him more often during these summer months. So, guys, that is going to wrap up the fourth quarter. But as promised, again, we do want to start spending, a good 5+ minutes at the end of each and every show answering any questions you guys have. So again, if you are in the chat right now, thank you for listening, and please send us any keeper questions specifically that you might have ahead of next season. So starting off from Charles Locken in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, Charles. Kendall, he has the 11th pick. He can keep Malik Neighbors and lose his 3rd round pick, or he can actually keep Pacheco and lose his 7th. So seems like it's Neighbors in round 3 or Pacheco in round 7. Off the cuff, I just feel like Neighbors in round 3 is pretty special. Pacheco, it's reasonable value at both. I don't think there's, sometimes I know on Sirius you get some of these keeper questions where it's like, oh my God, like, yes, obviously take that guy. It's close, but for me, it's just like when it is close in value, just give me the better player, and that's obviously Malik Neighbors.
Exactly. I was going to say Malik Neighbors in the 3rd already feels like somewhat of a steal, because it's not one where if you didn't keep him that you would be able to get him back at that cost, right? That's the other thing you have to look at with some of these questions. It's like, okay, because sometimes we will get those. And I understand, like, sometimes you just overthink it. We had one on SiriusXM the other day where it was about Justin Jefferson in the first round. And we're like, listen, we understand, like, we get it. We don't need to overthink it. And it was someone else, not too good. But I would go with Malik Neighbors there, just because you're not, I think that's still value, even though, listen, Russell Wilson it's still Russell Wilson, but it's going to be hopefully better than some of the quarterback play we got last season. He was able to still be elite with those quarterbacks throughout the season. And then if he's not, then we've got Jameis Winston, which we still love for fantasy football purposes. And maybe Jackson Dart can be an answer there for New York. So I would go Neighbors there for sure.
Also mentioned that about 15 to 20 players will be kept in the league. So yeah, once you start getting a shortage of those elite, super high-end players, even more reason to go ahead and keep the one that you already had. So also sent out some questions on Twitter. So appreciate you guys to responding from that. Kendall, from Ian Morgan, he can keep one. We're looking at 0.5 PPR, Superflex, non-tight end premium. Jonnu Smith, Ramondre Stevenson, Rashid Shaheed, and Daniel Jones. I guess we're assuming, equal kind of keeper cost here. Personally, I kind of think Ramondre is the move, but Ramondre and Rashid Shaheed, I feel like either one's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, my initial reaction was Rashid Shaheed, but it wasn't like I'm super excited about it, to be totally honest. Ramondre Stevenson, I can understand. So at that point, I would go with, where you lack a little bit more of. So if you have a team right now and you don't have the running back depth and you actually need someone that could produce for you continuing on this season, then I would go with Mondre. But if you want, there is some upside with Rashid Shaheed. Like if Tyler Shuck actually comes out there and surprises a lot of people, Chris Olave, we know, has had those concussions, so it's unfortunate. But if there were an injury and he were to go down again, like he would be the focal point of that offense. So I lean a little more Rashid Shaheed here for Amanda, of course, too.
A little bit more star power in our next question from Rim Runner. Brock Bowers in round 10 or Chase Brown in round 12? Kendall, regardless of who you say, good job by you, Rim Runner. Those are two fantastic options to have.
Oh man, this is a hard question. I'm going Brock. I'm keeping Brock Bowers in the 10th. I know that usually sometimes we look and we just want to go for the value, and I know the 12th round is good value for Chase Brown there. But I look at the production that Brock Bowers could give you. I look at how, I think you, Ian, were talking about Chase Brown. How much, could this role change because of where he was drafted for the Cincinnati Bengals? So I would go Brock here.
And also just like shoring up your tight end before you even start your draft. That just feels so good to have Brock Bowers in there. You're good at tight end. Don't even have to think about it for the next few hours. From Gary Gabagoo, we have a situation where it's Jaden Daniels in round 12 or Terry McLaurin in round 9. I'm kind of thinking similar sentiment here, Kendall. Give me my quarterback. Daniels in round 12. Yes. I mean, again, kudos to you, Gary Gabagoo.
First of all, I love that name. Second of all, don't overthink this. Like you're taking Jaden Daniels almost every single time in this. The 12th, congrats to you. I'm actually very jealous. You're taking Jaden.
Straight up, Kendall, Alex Robbins, Brian Thomas Jr. or Malik Neighbors? I think I go Neighbors, actually, just for more targets.
Wow. Well, based on my rankings, I would actually go Brian Thomas Jr. on this one. Okay. Yeah, straight up I would, but that's a difficult question.
Last one from Kevin Jack. Can keep two in a standard league. Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, JSN.
Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, JSN.
You are a resident Seahawks fan.
I know, I can't do it. I'm really nervous about Sam Darnold. I actually can't even tell you how nervous I am about it. I think I would go Bucky. What about you?
I think I would go Bucky, Chase Brown, JSN last. It is a standard league, guys. Yeah. Unfortunately, just going to be pretty tough. So, Kendall, okay, last one. You can keep a Cam Scatterbo jersey for your third-round pick or Darren Waller's entire music catalog for your 20th from Jake in the chat.
Jake, stop it. I'm going with Cam Scatterbo all day, every day, and it's that's where I'm leaving it. Cam all day. Forks up.
You heard it from K-Dog herself. Guys, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Fantasy Live Show. We appreciate you tuning in again. Hope and invite you guys to hang out with us live. We'll continue to get to plenty of your questions throughout the rest of the summer. So from Kendall, from producer Matt, from producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everybody.